Good evening. I am calling to order the December 2nd meeting of the Town Council. It is now 6:30. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Andrews,
Present.
Councilmember Beckman,
Here.
Councilmember Casissa,
Here.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Here.
Mayor Ravazio is absent from this meeting.
Okay. Will you please join me for the pledge to the flag?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, then. Well, the first order of business this evening is the reorganization of the council. Public comment. Oh. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm a little bit new at this. Okay, it is now time for open time. Any member of the public who wishes to speak on an item not on the agenda may step up to the microphone and do so now. I see no people stepping up to the microphone in the room. Is there anyone online?
No hands raised from our attendees online, and we didn't receive any emailed public comment for open time.
Thank you. Then now we will move on to the first item this evening is the reorganization of the town council. We're looking for first a motion for mayor, or do we let the motion first and then, okay.
I'll move Rosa Thomas for mayor.
Second.
Thank you. May we have a vote, please? Oh, sorry. Now we have open time again. Would anyone like to speak on the matter of the choice of mayor? Anyone online?
No hands raised from attendees online, no emailed public comment for the nomination or selection of mayor.
All right, then. So shall we call a vote?
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you. We will need to choose a vice mayor. Do we have anyone who would like to comment on that matter? Okay. Would anyone like to? Would anyone like to make a motion for the office of vice mayor?
I nominate Fred Casissa for vice mayor.
Works for me. Second.
Second, yeah. Okay. Right. Now, do we have any public comment for the matter of vice mayor? I see none in the House. Anyone online?
None online and none via email.
Okay. And please take a vote. Okay.
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
I love this. It's as easy as switching your seat.
Keeping the peace here.
So do you guys switch or you can stay where you are?
You know what? We can switch next meeting.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you to my fellow council members for their faith in me, and I will do my best to live up to your high standards that many of you have set for me. Now, on to the first, the consent calendar. Anyone in the public or on the council can remove an item from the consent calendar with by just saying so. Is there anything that would like to be removed from the consent calendar? I see none here. Is there anyone online who would like to remove anything?
No hands raised from attendees online and no emailed requests for removal of any items. From
Okay,
attendees.
and do we need public, that is the public comment on,
And also no public comment.
okay, and no public comment. Any public comment in the room? No. All right then, so I need a motion to approve the consent calendar, please.
I'll make motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second?
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa.
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
All right then. Now we move on. We have no presentations. So we'll move on to public hearings. Our first item is consideration of possible action of a reintroduction of ordinance 1054, adopting the development impact report as the nexus study for the fire protection impact fee. And we have a report from,
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Thomas and members of the council. Amy Lyle, Community Development Director, and then I also have Ruben Martin, our Fire Chief for Central Marin Fire Authority. And tonight is a reintroduction of an ordinance that you took action on a few weeks ago on November 18th. Next slide, please. And just to refamiliarize the council, this fee, the purpose is really to create a new impact fee for future development to be able to pay a proportionate share of the costs for facilities, equipment, vehicles necessary to maintain existing levels of service. And next slide, please. So at your last council meeting, you did take action on an urgency ordinance to put the fees in place while the permanent ordinance takes its own process. And you did vote to introduce the permanent ordinance, and you did adopt a resolution adopting the fees. And we did want to make a few minor changes to the permanent ordinance. If you can go to the next slide, please. And so the purpose of the reintroduction is really because this is a change and we wanted to make sure to bring this forward and reintroduce the item in whole. And so the primary change is based on clarification on how the affordable housing fee reduction would apply. There was some ambiguity in the language, and the staff's intent is to recommend a fee reduction for any affordable unit that is for low or very low income, not necessarily a full project that is 100% for low and very low. So it would be any of those units within market rate developments as well. So the clarifying language is in your staff report and on the screen, but very minor changes to be able to accomplish that clarity that staff feels we need to seek. Next slide, please. And then because we are talking about affordability and fee reductions, I did just want to note there are some other areas of our municipal code that really speak to fee reductions related to development. And one is related to any of our impact fees or mitigation fees, but your council does have the ability to waive, reduce, or rebate fees at the request of a developer, and for projects that have projects that exceed our affordability requirements by a minimum of 10%. And then there's also another reduction related to traffic impact mitigation fees within the code as well. So that's very narrowly for traffic impact mitigation fees specifically. And next slide. So our recommendation tonight is to reintroduce the ordinance 1054 that would essentially adopt the code to accomplish the development impact fee. And if your council were to reintroduce this tonight, then there would be another second reading. So this does require a public hearing. And I will say we do have one public comment that was received. And this was received from the executive director of Call Marin Home, formerly known as the Marin Housing Collaborative. And the intent of this is to really express that this is a cost to development. And we did discuss this at the last council meeting, and this does add cost to housing development. And we can discuss this more if you'd like, but in staff response, I will say that impact fees are common. And when you look at our town's collective impact fees, we are lower than other jurisdictions. This fire impact fee is higher than some other jurisdictions, but it's based on the actual cost that the Central Marin Fire Authority has identified to be able to maintain the service based on the amount of housing projections that we have. And so it really is about that nexus study. And even the state level housing community development, pro-housing designation, they all recognize impact fees are prevalent, but they do suggest and award points, for instance, in the pro-housing designation, when there is a reduction for affordability. So it's really trying to balance competing crises of public safety and then also the housing crisis. So we're hoping to strike that balance, but of course it's up to your council on what you'd like to do. But our staff recommendation is to maintain our recommendation previously of the 50% reduction for affordable units that are low and very low. So with that, I will close the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions, as is Ruben.
Okay, do we have any questions from the council?
Thank you very much, Amy. Thank you, Chief. Was wondering if you could just speak to the sort of how the discrepancy between our proposed fee and the fee adopted by neighboring cities like Larkspur, can you help us understand sort of where that comes from and what's driving that difference?
Hello, Mr. Beckman and members of the council. Are we talking specifically about the fees within the Nexus study or fees in general?
I would say the fees within the Nexus study, and specifically like, the cost per square foot proposed fee here. I can.
Yeah, I believe their process took what the density or the population of the community is. Then they also took the amount of square footage or buildings that were available within the community. And they did some mathematical computations on the back end and came up with what would be a recoverable fee based on the proposed projects that are anticipated within the housing element. And so some of the nuances, I believe they also look at, I believe if what Amy is talking about is right now, currently, the town of Corte Madera owns the 2 buildings, and we also own 2 buildings within the city of Larkspur that are owned by the city of Larkspur, the 2 firehouses, and they took that into consideration on what the cost of reconstruction would be of those facilities and what the square footage is. And if you could look at their buildings are slightly smaller than our buildings. And so they also took that into consideration on the cost of replacement of what it would be. And then to try to look at the nexus of what the future growth is going to be, not the full complete cost of it, but the future growth and what that anticipated future growth will be. And so the future development will pay just a fraction or a portion of what the growth in the community will be, as opposed to the entire full cost of the project.
Okay.
I think I'll make it, if I'm speaking in the right language.
Yeah. Yeah, that helps. And then in terms of I guess, one thing that I understand that the 2 facilities that exist in Corte Madera and the 2 facilities that exist in Larkspur are different. But I think if I'm not mistaken, the fundamentals are the same, that both cities have 2 facilities each of relatively comparable size and function, I would say, as fire facilities go. So I think that's kind of my question there. Is there something else that I'm missing that's driving? Right. I mean, Corte Madera and Larkspur, all things considered, were very similarly sized communities. We have very similar, fire assets. We have, I think it's not incorrect to say fairly similar fire protection needs. So I just wanted to make sure that I understand the difference in those fees.
Amy?
Yeah, I will say that our fee is slightly higher than Larkspur's, and I believe that's attributed to the structure of the fire departments that are within Corte Madera versus Larkspur. There's some differences in the land ownership and the building ownership, and so that's reflected in the cost as far as what Central Marin Fire Authority would need to cover as things are improved. And so the calculation is really taking that into account. And that's why there is some differences in the numbers. So there's not a drastic difference in the population projection between Larkspur and Corte Madera. The differences are really the cost to the department on the two jurisdictions and how those are calculated.
If I may also, maybe clarify. If you look at the calculations on page 15 of the matrix study, it looks at cost per capita calculation, which then takes the total cost of capital improvements that will be needed with the growth. They divide that by the anticipated future growth of population, which gives you about just slightly below $2,000 per individual that is adding to the service. And then they break that down based on the density levels of both multifamily and single family and assisted living. And it comes down to a certain cost based on that density.
Okay. I mean,
There's mud.
yeah. Okay. I mean, Amy,
And so what they're looking at is the population growth within Larkspur is anticipated to be less than the population growth within the Corte Madera. And so that capital growth, I believe there is also different.
Amy did just characterize the Corte Madera's fees as being, I think, slightly different than Larkspur's was the word, but they're almost double. So I would say that's not slight. So, I think, again, just trying to make sure that I don't question at all the need to make sure that our future fire needs are fully funded, but I just want to make sure that to the extent that our fees might be double Larkspur's, that we understand what's driving that.
Yeah, so once again, if you look at projected growth and development on page 6 of the Nexus report, it'll dictate on population increase within the town of Corte Madera is approximately going to be about just shy of 2,500. They look at 2.45 persons per household, which is then they multiply that by the anticipated units, gives you what your population is. And then based on that, then they go into another formula that then breaks it down. And it also looks at the formula of Larkspur, which is 2.16 persons per unit, which is less dense. For the 1,000 units that they're going to get, which is about 2,100 residents. Then they break down the 2025 estimates and they project it out to 2040. And then they, like I said, it's a bunch of different calculations that they've used in here that will give you what the average square foot per person plus both residential and commercial, and what the cost of providing fire protection services within those dense communities will be. The calculations to be in the methodology used on both the city and the town were the same. It's just the numbers were different.
Right. Yeah, that I understand. But again, I think if we're saying Corte Madera is expecting 2,400 new residents and Larkspur is expecting 2,100 over the same period of time, again, that doesn't on its face make it easy to understand why our fees would be double.
I think I'm not quite understanding I understand the concept that both us and Larkspur should be the same.
Or similar.
Similar.
Yeah.
Fairly close when you start looking at impact fees. But the Nexus study that was commissioned based on their calculations, based on future projected growth, came out with calculations that are presented before you that are different. And so we relied on the calculations that were provided for us by our matrix consultants.
Do you know if Larkspur's offering a discount for low income like we are, 50% rate or what?
Yes, they are.
Is it the same
It's at the
50%?
exact same rate. We did a presentation for them on the 19th, which is the day following our meeting here. And at their presentation, they went ahead and directed staff to come back with an ordinance and a resolution to go ahead and put this within their municipal code as well. So
Okay.
we'll be taking that at the first reading for them tomorrow. An introduction for that. And so it's the same methodology, utilizing the same methodology for both. It's just the collection rate is different between the two municipalities.
Yes. First, if we go to page 3 of the ordinance, section 1 says findings. Item D, it reads, this ordinance is necessary for the preservation of the public peace, comma, health, comma, and safety because future development authorized by the HE update will bring a significant number of new residents to town. To maintain current levels of service, the CMFA will need to expand staff and purchase new apparatus and equipment. And then there's 2 words, the new staff, comma, apparatus, period. And then there's another complete sentence. What's the rest of that sentence, or should those words be deleted?
I believe those words should be deleted. Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. Page 30D. And then on page 7, it says the Fire Protection Impact Fund shall be administered by the Community Development Director. What exactly does administration mean in that sentence?
So it really means that our department, the Community Development Department, would be the ones collecting the fee and then providing it to the fire authority. So we would be in charge of making sure that the fee is assessed appropriately to projects and that the funds would move to the fire authority.
Okay. I know in Larkspur, they said the city manager or his designee would be responsible for managing it. Why didn't we use that language?
We certainly can. We have some other impact fees that charge the Community Development Director with administration.
And then the last thing is on the impact fee, A, B, C, D, E. And then G3, it reads, CMFA shall be responsible for providing funds to cover the reduction in funds resulting from this subsection F. Could the fire department just invoice the town for the cost of our planning decisions? Be made whole?
Well, the impetus behind that statement is to make sure that there isn't an impact to our general fund here in town. So this is a fee developed by Central Marin Fire Authority. Even though it's administered by the town and by Larkspur, they are the ones that are assessing the fee for their needs. So there should be no cost to the town. So if there's a reduction in the amount, if there is any reduction involved, which it's not really a reduction in fee because it's a new fee, we just wanted to make it clear that this is Central Marin Fire Authority's reduction. It is not, there's no impact to the general fund of the town of Corte Madera
Why?
because this is a fee for the Central Marin Fire Authority.
Correct. But The forgiveness is a planning department decision.
Well, if I may, it's actually, this is the matter before the council right now. So I think this is the decision and the proposal before the council right now. So it's up to the council to decide whether or not that reduction is going to actually be part of the ordinance or not at this time as part of this fee. I think I mentioned this last time. You know, we're introducing essentially a mechanism right now that doesn't exist to actually recoup some of the money or some of the impact that new residents would have on essentially fire services. So you can look at it one of two ways. One, we're now for the first time introducing and bringing to the council something where we're essentially now recouping some of that impact for the CMFA, which previously didn't exist. And so the town's general fund was supporting that entire cost of new development for fire safety and additional services. And so I look at it as this is a new source of funding for facilities for CMFA, but we are balancing that with essentially the other goals that the town has set for housing affordability through our housing element policies, which were adopted a couple of years ago. And so that's sort of the balance that we're making at this point in time, or requesting that the council weigh in on in this policy decision.
I just have a couple more. Can you just clarify that sentence again? Because it says CMFA shall be responsible for providing funds to cover the reduction in funds resulting from whatever subsection. So if I have to pay $1 million in fees, but I'm getting discounted I'm getting a 50% discount for low income units, right? And now I'm only paying 500,000. Does that mean they have to make up the other 500,000?
Mr. Casissa, if I may, I think the way to explain it is we're currently receiving 0 fees.
Right.
So if there are no impact fees, then this development occurs, the full borne cost to provide services to a facility is fully borne by the Central Marin Fire Authority. Now, if a development comes in and we're able to provide impact fees, and because the philosophy as the council and within your housing element is to promote affordable housing, is to give these developers a discount to try to continue to promote building and housing within the community, we would then recoup a portion of funds that we didn't have today. So basically it's saying is, if I need an additional ambulance or an additional engine, I'm going to use those impact fees for the purchase of the engine. However, they don't pay for the entire engine on its own. They're only paying for a portion of it. So the rest of that financial responsibility will still remain with the fire department. We're not coming back to the city for those.
Right, but eventually it would come back to the city because we fund the fire.
That's
department.
correct.
So it would, in a sense.
It does wind up being our response.
Yes.
Ultimately, it does.
At the end of the day.
I guess what it is that sentence to me, I'll be honest with you, to me, it's just confusing the way it's written. That's me. Setting that aside, 2 other questions. Any unit, if I do a lot split and I go build 2 units and one of them is low income, then I would get a 50% discount on the fire impact fee.
Yes, typically you don't see that with that
Okay.
small of a subdivision, but
Right.
if it were deed restricted, yes.
Okay, and that was a question. So it would have to be deed restricted. Okay, and then you guys are planning figures out, make sure that there is a deed restriction within the deed that can only be for low income.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thanks.
And Madam Mayor, if I may come back to, and I may be able to answer Mr. Beckman's question earlier on the differences in cost. And going back through the report, if you look at the projected cost of future capital investments within the town of Corte Madera for both vehicles and facilities, it's about 4.8 million. And that's the proportional cost of the growth or anticipated growth of the community. And so if you look at Larkspur's, their proportional cost per building, it's about 2.4, 2.5 million. So the capital improvements within the city of Larkspur, based on the reconstruction cost and the cost of the vehicles, are less than what the town of Corte Madera is. And so that's where that factor comes in on why the numbers are different on the impact fees. You're welcome.
That was something I was going to ask about because you had mentioned replacement cost in Larkspur. And I think that, the fire station in Larkspur is pretty inadequate size-wise, and it won't hold certain engines that are, that will be the future. So replacement as opposed to actually creating a better, a more adequate fire station, both in Larkspur and here, I think we are looking at, that here as well in Corte Madera. That has something to do with the cost. My other question is so these are projected population. What happens? We've all, we've rezoned, et cetera, for greater density. But what happens if these don't materialize, but we still are going to need these improvements in facilities? Do we come back and look at this again, or? Because I think we're going to need the improvements whether we have the increase
And that's
in
correct.
population.
It's, I think right now within the fire authority, there's definitely facility needs. However, if you remember with the Nexus report and the study and what the recommendation is that every 5 to 8 years, we come back and take a look at the study, relook at the numbers, relook at the impact fees, whether they've gone up or gone down based on new projections. And so I think that's how we stay on top of this.
Okay. Doesn't make it any easier to make a decision, but that's.
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't. And then to the answer to your second half of your question is what happens if these properties or these buildings or these projection numbers never materialize? Well, then the fire authority never collects impact fees because buildings aren't being built. And so what that has to do, then we as a fire authority have to now start looking at other funding mechanisms on trying to look at how are we going to rebuild our facilities and how are we going to maintain with the service level of the community?
Okay.
Madam Mayor, just to follow up on the chief's mitigation impact fees, come back to council. You'll see this in an upcoming agenda soon. Every 5 years, council has to make particular findings. The town is required to look at the expenditures and provide public information. And then every 8 years, there has to be a new nexus study. So the idea is that we do the best we can with projections, but sometimes projections don't pan out, as you say. So it comes back to council for changes, reevaluations, and the nexus studies every 8 years to make sure that we're not banking money that isn't being spent on the purpose for which it's collected.
Thank you. Should we ask for open time for public comment on this matter? Does anyone have anything to add? See none in the house. Anyone online?
None from our attendees online. And we have a hand raised from Jenny Silva, who's the person who emailed her public comment earlier
Okay.
today. Go ahead, Jenny.
Hi, Town Council. Thank you for taking my comment. I just have been listening to the explanation on why the fees in Corte Madera are so much higher. And I guess there are a lot of assumptions that are going into this. And before, when the staff was asked to make an estimate of how much revenue was being made, they resisted because it was hard to make a projection given the number of assumptions going in. And so I would just suggest that given that this is based on so many assumptions, that we take a common sense look at the output, and that it would be damaging for Corte Madera to be implementing a fee that's so much higher than the surrounding communities. And that ends up being so much money. If you look at the Tamil Vista project, this Nexus study is saying that the incremental cost to service it would be $800,000. And if it came in later, the fee would be less at 400,000. But 800,000 just seems like an awful lot to be saying we have to, that just doesn't, I know the Nexus study was done and they used a bunch of assumptions in there, but I question that the output really makes sense compared to what every other jurisdiction is doing. We know right now that we have many, many housing developments in Marin that are not penciling out. They are not able to get the funding that they need to be developed. And including 240 Tamil Vista is struggling to get the financing that it needs. And so layering on $500,000 fees is just going to make that equation much more difficult. And given that there are so many assumptions going into this, I would ask that we are conservative in new fees that are being implemented, and rather than trying to recoup all of the new potential cost, which is our best guess at the end of the day, why don't we recoup something that's similar to what other jurisdictions are doing? And then when you reassess in the future, you can adjust then. But it would be a real shame to lose some of the projects that are coming in the pipeline. We know that we need that housing. And if the projects don't get built, we'll be collecting zero. And so let's err on the side of making sure that we build. Thanks.
We don't have any additional public comment.
I'll bring it back to the council for additional suggestions or discussion.
Just a couple of comments. One thing, I would like to see the change that Jim kind of alluded to, town manager designee versus community development officer, however that's in there, that verbiage. Given I know the conversation, given the amount of fees, I don't know if I feel comfortable setting the fees this high. I understand the report, Chief Martin, I totally understand that. It's just when you look at us and you look at Larkspur, and I think Eli's saying we're more, I didn't look at the numbers you did. It's more than double. You wonder if I'm a developer and I'm going to come in. I know developers, it's about location, but it's about cost and it's about making money. And if I can do a development, X units in Corte Madera, and I'm going to be hit with the 800,000 or $1 million fee, and I can do the same development in Larkspur, maybe the location isn't as good as Corte Madera, again, being right off 101, but the fee's for 500,000, it's a chunk of money. So I'm impartial right now on the fees. I just don't know if they're set too high. I don't know what the magic number is. I'll be honest with you. If we sat here and saying, hey, there's a 10% difference between us and Larkspur, then that's one thing, but you're looking at half. It's 50%, which is a chunk of money. I don't know what Mill Valley, I don't know if you have any idea what Mill Valley charges, or San Rafael. I'm just trying to get an idea. And I know San Rafael, it's hard to compare to because much larger city, or even Tiburon, San Selma. I don't know what they charge. It's like anything else. Do we need to be competitive with these fees to attract developers? And if we're not competitive with those fees, is it going to do the opposite and discourage developers? And again, it's about the location. The developer, am I willing to pay the premium because it's in a better location? I don't know the answer to some of those questions.
Just to, I think, kind of build on some of what Fred was saying. I think so. One question that I have, I've heard it characterized that even if Corte Madera were to adopt these specific impact fees that may be twice as high as Larkspur's, we still look very favorable in terms of our cumulative impact fees or development fees regionally. Is that true? And if so, could you put a little more color to that for us?
I don't have specific numbers, but our other impact fees are less, and we have less impact fees in force than some other jurisdictions. So that is certainly something I can research and bring forward at the next meeting if you would like.
It's helpful to know. It's helpful context for making a decision like this. This is still an urgency ordinance, right? So this will continue to come back periodically. Is that
permanent ordinance? Yes. So there is another opportunity.
Yeah. So I would say then, I would certainly ask if you could provide that information at our next meeting. I think similar line of questioning, if we look at, I think the speaker brought up 240 Tamil Vista as sort of a hypothetical example, even though understanding that that project obviously is not subject to these fees regardless. But let's take it as an example since it exists. If that's, if that is a project where we're saying their fees might be 400,000 if they had been subject to this fee. I think we had said that it was, it would have been 800,000. They would get the 50% discount because they're 100% affordable. So it'd be 400,000. $400,000 is a lot of money. But I don't have a sense of how much money it is relative to the cost or value of the project, right? If that's a $40 million project, and it very well may be, then that fee is 1%, which is not nothing, but it's, likely not a showstopper. If that's a $10 million project, that becomes a much bigger hurdle. Are you able to share, just to help me kind of get a sense of like the ballpark orders of magnitude we're talking about? Can you give any sort of ballpark estimate of like what a project like 240 Tamil Vista would cost?
So sorry, I can't at this moment.
Okay. Okay, because I think I think the root of what we're all grappling with, right, is I think there's no question that we've got to fund our current and future needs for fire protection. We've got to fund that fully. I think the question is just how, and is this a way of doing that risks undermining something else that we need to do as a town, which is provide housing that people can actually afford. So I'm trying to just make sure that I understand to what extent a fee like the one proposed would be expected to be a barrier to new housing going up in the future. And so I think I appreciate it. I saw that in the staff report, you did provide an estimate of the revenue that this could bring in over a 15-year time frame. That was a request from our last discussion on this, and that's really helpful context. I think additional helpful context would be, again, a sense of what our cumulative fee landscape is relative to other cities, and a general sense, at least, of how big are these fees as proposed relative to the cost of a development? So that would be helpful. And
It's helpful. I can say that just for instance, the 240 Tamil Vista project, the only impact fee that they will be charged for is our street impact fee. And that was adopted quite a few years ago. So that hasn't been increased for inflation. So that is somewhat low, and they are not subject to the traffic mitigation fees, park fees, or affordable housing fees or commercial linkage fees, because they are providing affordable housing. So, that's what I mean when it comes to affordable housing. We do not have a lot of layered types of impact fees in place, but I could certainly look into the cumulative amount for other projects or market rate of what they would be charged. But it's very speculative, but we can certainly do that and kind of look comparatively on what other cities in Marin and elsewhere are doing.
Right. Yeah, I think that would be helpful because, again, I think what we want to do here is make sure that fire services are fully funded going forward, but we also want to make sure that we're not inadvertently pushing housing that would have gone in Corte Madera into other cities, into other communities.
Mr. Beckman, if I may, on fees, and putting this together, within the county of Marin, there are no fire agencies or municipalities that have fire agencies that have fire development impact fees.
Right.
So this is a new fee for Marin. I believe the last time a fire development impact fee was implemented by a fire district was in Nevada when they rebuilt Hamilton. And I believe that's how they were able to get some funding for that building.
Yeah.
But here, when it looks at Fairfax, within our study, that's just an impact fee per unit on multifamily. Has nothing to do with fire development impact fees.
Right.
And so fire services are then the fully burden of the municipalities that then comes out of their general funds.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And again, understanding that this is a new type of impact fee for most of Marin. But just wanting to make sure that we're evaluating it in the context of like, is this a step change in how much it costs to build in Corte Madera? I think that's an important question for us to ask. So, I think you've been very helpful, Chief and Amy, in terms of helping me understand where the numbers in this specific proposal came from. And so I appreciate that. And I think, understanding that this is something that's going to be a recurring item before us, and that there's going to be ample opportunity to, fine tune and adjust this moving forward. I think I'm okay moving forward here, but I just want to make sure that we're all keeping a really close eye on the development scene in Corte Madera after, before and after this fee goes into effect. I know that you guys are doing a fantastic job of being in touch with applicants, with developers, with even just folks who have worked in Corte Madera before, even if they don't necessarily have a proposal in front of us right now, and trying to keep your eye on the ball that way. So that's great. But I would just say, if there is a sense that this may be dampening our ability to bring new housing to Corte Madera, let's make a priority of bringing this back and figuring out how we need to tinker it to lower those fees, and then of course, figuring out how we're going to backfill any reduced fee revenue to make sure that we're not losing funding long term for fire protection.
And then, God,
Am I correct in believing that what we are setting is the upper limit on the fees?
For the Nexus study, this is the most we can charge. So that's the upper limit. That's the
So
ceiling. Yes.
A year from now, we could sit there and go, let's shave it 20% or 50% or whatever.
And that would be the decision of this board.
Short of
Yes.
money, but whatever. Okay.
Clarify something too with Fairfax. They have a per unit fee, but is that for fire only, or yeah, you said there's no.
There is no fire impact fee.
Yeah.
That's for their community development department that then goes into their general fund.
How does that? Do we have any idea of how that pencils out? If you're going to put it back to per square foot, is that going to end up being more? I mean, because there's some.
I believe new state law requires that it be as a per square foot assessment versus a flat fee assessment.
Got it.
That way, units based on size pay their proportional fair share. So that way it isn't a flat fee for a 10,000 square foot McMansion versus a 2,000 square foot home.
So they're going to have to change that.
At some point, yes.
Okay, all right. That was the question I forgot to ask before. So I know you had another.
yeah, I just have a procedural question. We're only introducing this tonight, correct? So if we introduce this and it comes back to us at our next meeting, at that point in time, we can get more information from staff before we approve it to make it permanent. Do you see what I'm saying? Or, so I guess what I'm trying to say is we're not locked into this tonight, right? Because I agree with Eli. I think we had more information. It sounds like trying to compare it to Mill Valley, there is no other town in Marin that's doing this, correct? So that's kind of off the table. But if you came back to us and sat there saying, hey, total impact fees, for example, for 240 Tamil Vista is X. So we could sit there saying, yeah, we're lower here, we're higher here, but it all evens out in the end. That would be helpful. But I just want to make sure that we have that opt out in a sense at our next meeting.
Yes, just to answer the question. So the ordinance could be introduced this evening. There would be a second reading, which we could put on as a business item to anticipate some discussion and maybe some additional information brought at that meeting, which would be January 20th. If there were changes, though, however, proposed or amendments at the second reading, we would have to essentially reintroduce the ordinance again because it wouldn't have been anticipated at that time. So essentially, we would probably take any feedback or comments on potential amendments. I think we'd have to agendize at the meeting following that in early February, reintroducing, sort of like we're doing this evening, a reintroduction of that ordinance that could then be formally adopted at the second meeting in February is how I would say.
Okay, it still helps move the process along though, right?
And we have an emergency ordinance already in place
do.
right now.
We absolutely do. And I believe that is, do you know how often, Amy, we have to?
Every 30 days, we would have to readopt that.
Okay.
So the hope is that the second reading would be on the 16th. If there's room for a business item. And then that would keep us in line with doing 2 more urgency
Correct.
ordinances if it's introduced tonight and we have a second reading.
Oh, yeah. Did I say that? I'm sorry. I said January 20th. I guess I'm already into 2026. Sorry. It would be December 16th. We could bring this back.
But that urgency ordinance is only in effect 30 days at a time. So
Right.
even if there's a change to the fee, that urgency ordinance will fall off and the permanent ordinance will take place whenever it's in full effect. But the permanent ordinance is in effect 30 days after the second reading. So that's why there's some sequencing.
Got it. Okay.
So based upon all that, I'm okay supporting this. Again, staff can come back to us with the information we need. Two other things. There was a sentence in here that kind of didn't make sense. I pointed out to the town clerk. I think she's going to fix that. It's not material. It doesn't materially affect anything. And one other thing we may want to consider down the road, it sounds like whatever impact fees we have, it's not going to cover the equipment that you're going to fire equipment in the long run. So there's going to be a shortfall. At some point in time, we may want to think about from a finance side, actually setting up a reserve that would be on the town side of it. And that reserve is specified for fire equipment. So down the road, we can make up some of those differences and we're not just pulling it out all of a sudden. Again, that's a discussion for another day, but just to get that out there.
That's fine. And if I may just comment real quickly on that, Councilmember Casissa, I think there's a separate parallel conversation happening at the Fire Council regarding essentially the large amount of needs for facilities, regardless of even increasing of population in our communities. And so there will likely be some discussion at the Fire Council, then also with the council here at a future date regarding where that funding source is going to be coming from. We're currently have a consultant on board who's going to be doing essentially some analysis for us over the next six months or so to assess not only the need, potential costs, but also some sources of options for funding.
If I may, just a point of order. If council is introducing the ordinance tonight, we should get the amendments that you want to the introduction on the record now. If we don't introduce it now, we'd have to do a third reading. So if there is an introduction, let's get the amendments.
So the question though is, do we have amendments without the information that you guys have been asking for? Can we make, I mean, if anyone's feeling comfortable doing that, I'm fine with it, but I'm just asking, do we feel we have enough information to make the amendments? Oh, do we have enough information to make amendments?
At least I'm going to suggest three. First, on page 3, item D, delete the two extraneous words. We agree on that?
Yes.
Okay. Page 7. Item B. To line up with what Larkspur has, have the impact fund be administered by the town manager or their designee.
Sure.
And then the last and probably most controversial, page 8, G3, where it says the CMFA shall be responsible for providing funds to cover reduction in funds resulting from this subsection F, like invoicing the town for reimbursement. Because the fire department is not making this land use decision, okay? The town is. And we're making it so that we can encourage construction. Okay. Otherwise, the fire department could just say, hey, I want all the money. So anyway, those are my 3 suggestions. For or against?
I'm still a little bit confused on that. Is anyone else?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not understanding what it is. that we're changing.
Okay,
I think it's just the last one, correct? It's
Just the last,
just the
line, yeah,
last,
just the
your
last one I
comment.
understand.
basically what I'm saying is the CMFA is responsible for paying for building out all the infrastructure, okay? Our planning department and council has decided that 50% of that money should be forgiven to meet our our town's housing goals, which is not a fire department goal. And I'm saying that the fire department should be made whole for our decision. So basically, if somebody has a $500,000 fee, we forgive half of it for our planning function, okay? Somebody's gonna have to top it off with the missing money. And I'm saying it should come directly out of the town's budget.
But I thought as we discussed it does, right? Because we fund the fire department.
Yeah. In terms of the two towns, are they 50-50 in terms of funding the fire department?
Yes, that's correct.
So if we
Is both of us, and we pay the same amount.
gives $100,000 for a bunch of ADUs, then we forgive $500,000, they're subsidizing us.
Not sure if we can look at it that way. I think for fire protection services, the ability to provide and have firefighters available to respond to calls is being paid for 50 and 50 by both Corte Madera and Larkspur. And so I don't view it as subsidizing. I view it as how much cost recovery we can make for future investments within the fire department.
So if you need a new fire truck for $1 million, they're on the hook for Larkspur has to come up with 500,000. We have to come up with 500,000.
That's
It
correct.
doesn't matter where we come up with the money, whether it be through these new impact fees or general budget. And then on Larkspur, it's on them where they have to come up with the money. We're not subsidizing them at all.
That's correct.
And for that reason, I am with the chief. I would move introduction of the ordinance with the first two amendments that Councilmember Andrews read.
I can second that. There's one here. If you want to read the sentence, that means what I thought. It's on page 7, paragraph C. Town of Corte Madera must enter into an agreement with CMSA. That's the first sentence. Second sentence reads, any such agreements must do the provide for the following. I think it should just be any such agreement must provide for the following. Unless I'm reading that wrong.
You are correct.
Thank you. It's one of those things I couldn't tell if it was me. I think Lorraine already fixed it. Thank you. So again, I can second it with those changes.
Okay. So as moved with the 3 changes, 2 that were provided by Councilmember Andrews and the additional one made by Councilmember Casissa. Vice Mayor Casissa. I will call the vote.
Lorraine, I just want to clarify,
Yes.
my motion included the first 2 of Councilmember Andrews' 3 amendments, but not the third.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Andrews. Councilmember Beckman.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa. Mayor Ravazio. Oh, sorry, Mayor Thomas. Sorry.
Yes.
Just
It takes a little while. We look so much alike.
programmed.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. All right. Now we move on to item 6B, which is, oh, wait a minute. No. 7A, Consideration and possible action to authorize the interim director of Public Works to approve the plans and contract documents, authorize the sole source specification of T-Tuff sod from Delta Bluegrass Company, and that will be presented to us by Chris.
Thank you, Mayor Thomas and Council. So as you mentioned, I'll be discussing the Town Park Eastfield Rehabilitation Project tonight and requesting authorization to advertise and everything else you mentioned. Next slide. So just to go over the current conditions of the field, the field's located in the northeast part of Town Park, as shown in the exhibit. It's a natural grass field, and it's heavily used by both youth and adult sports teams, which include soccer, rugby, and lacrosse. Throughout the season, the field is periodically rotated to mitigate overuse, in front of the goals and where there's a lot of foot traffic. The field is partially within Larkspur Corte Madera School District property. It's around the north 40 to 50% of it is within their property. So we've been coordinating with them on this project. And over the years, the field has become uneven and overcompacted, which has caused drainage issues, maintenance challenges, and it's become not ideal for sports play, which was the reason this project came up. Next slide. Some background, community groups have advocated, over the years for an improved playing surface. This project was identified in the town's Parks and Recreation Master Plan in 2023. And this year, the Parks and Recreation Commission set it as one of their 3 priorities. And it was also included in the 2025 work plan. Next slide. So going over the proposed improvements, we'll be removing the existing sod and topsoil, going down roughly 4 to 6 inches. We'll install new topsoil and grade it to make a consistent slope, 1 to 2%, basically from the center outwards for drainage. And then we'll be installing new natural grass sod, which I'll be going over in the next slide. And also just to mention, we purchased a new Toro Groundmaster 4300 mower in July of this year, and it's a high performance mower meant for sports fields. So our team has already been using it, for the various sports fields, but it will help us, maintain a better field moving forward once this is complete. Next slide. So in this staff report, we were requesting to sole source the sod, and the specific sod is a T-Tuff sod from Delta Bluegrass Company. It's a hybrid Bermuda bluegrass with 20% ryegrass. And the reason we wanted to select this one, it was recommended by our consultant. It has excellent wear tolerance. It's dense. It spreads quickly and stays green in the winter. And it's resistant to crabgrass, which was noted by our consultant is growing in the area and will quickly spread if you use, different grass sod mixes. And so the reasoning behind the sole source is we want to use this as a test case to potentially, use this grass on our other fields as we replace them over time. One other mention I want to make is we have a bid additive item to install gopher wire below the field. Basically, it's a wire mesh that goes under the entire field and prevents rodents from burrowing up and damaging the field. Our maintenance team has said that this has happened in the past in this area. So if bids come in good, we'll plan to award that one and protect the field for long-term use. And then one other mention that we put in the staff report, we're hoping in the next calendar year to include building a storage shed in Town Park next to the Eastman parking lot near the community center. Right now, our maintenance staff don't have anywhere enclosed to store our equipment. So they have tractors and other equipment stored outside, and it's been damaged from rodents eating the wires and everything inside it. And also just the elements are causing damage. So right now we have our new mower stored at the courtyard and they have to drive it all the way across town every time we use it. So ideally, we're planning to include this in our work plan for next year, and hopefully we can build an enclosed space to store, you know, the mower and other equipment that we'll have to replace soon. Next slide. So just to quickly go over the budget, our base bid's 250,000. The gopher wire we're anticipating to be 50,000. Contingency will be 30,000, and we'll be doing construction management in-house. So the total anticipated cost is 330,000. And then the funding sources will be coming from, we received donations and user fees from the soccer club that add up to 52,475. And then the remainder will come from the sales tax, which is anticipated to be 277,000. And that concludes my presentation. So if you have any questions, great.
Thank you. Do I have any questions from the council?
I may have missed it. What's the timing?
We're going to try and bid it as soon as possible. And I think we're looking at construction starting late January to early February. And then construction should be about a month. And then there's a 90-day turf establishment period.
And you think this will solve the problem? Because I know that field when I was on Park and Rec a few years ago, it came up where it was an issue. And then one time it's like, oh, it's going to be like $1 million to fix it. So I give you credit because the cost is a lot less than what it was back then. But you think this is going to solve the problem?
Yeah, I believe it'll definitely be a far better field. I mean, the whole town park was built over fill. So at some point it's going to settle again, but I think for a very long time it'll be a huge improvement.
Okay, thanks.
I know you guys are very good at taking this sort of thing into account, but I'm going to ask anyways. As you just said, it's Phil, it's a former marsh. You touched on settlement. Do we have any concerns about like salinity or anything like that?
I don't believe so. I mean, we're planning to take out the existing subgrade and add new amendments and new topsoil. So for minimum, I think believe 4 to 6 inches below. So that should counteract any issues. And I believe also the contractors work hard to sample the subgrade and make sure there's nothing weird.
Great, thank you.
Just glad it's not AstroTurf, because if that came in, the moms would strangle you.
Here, here, Jim. Here, here.
All right. What the other opportunities? Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none in the house, do we have any online?
None from our attendees online, and just refresh the email. None from anyone via email.
Okay. So I will bring it back to council. I mean, I guess my only questions I think you've answered was how deep down are you scraping off the top? And that's 6 inches, you said?
Yeah, I believe minimum 6. And then in some areas we'll be stacking more than that just to get our grading.
Right. Okay. That's always a concern because the roots, I don't know how far down the roots go and if they hit something that's not good. And then it's the drainage. It's how deep do they go? And then after that, how much does it have to drain?
I don't know off the top of my head how deep the roots go. But for drainage, we wanted to get at least 1.5% in any direction. So that's the current plan. And right now it's flat in some areas. So that'll make a huge difference. And it'll make the field playable for longer periods in the year.
Okay, great. So do I have a motion?
I can go ahead and make the motion. And I want to thank you because, again, I think you're going to make a lot of people happy, kids, parents alike. Everybody's going to love you guys for doing this. So it's greatly appreciated. So I'll go ahead and make the motion. I'm trying to avoid reading the whole thing. To prove the subject has noted in the staff report, which reflects in the Eastfield Rehabilitation Project number 25005.
I will second, and I also want to thank you for doing a very good job of explaining in the staff report why we're using sole source for this, because I know that's unusual and it, makes me uncomfortable, but you explained it perfectly and it makes sense. So thank you.
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa.
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries.
thank you. That again. See, I'm not used to being on the mic so much because when you're vice mayor, you don't. So I keep turning myself off. So sorry about that. We are looking at council reports, starting with the town manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor Thomas and council members. I have a couple of updates for you. I think a few meetings ago, we heard from some concerned citizens about speeding and other issues on Tamalpais Drive. Just wanted to provide an update to you and the community that we have after speaking to CMPA. They are looking and focusing more resources on Tamalpais Drive, and happy that they've started to resource their traffic division a little bit more with some recent hires that are now being able to work solo as officers. And that has enabled them to sort of respond to this concern. And I got a report from our lieutenant that on a day a couple weeks ago, they were issuing about 6 or 7 tickets during the course of a few hours out there. So I think hoping to get that presence out on Tamalpais, people can see the officers, the vehicles sort of issuing some tickets that will help to slow down some of those concerns. They didn't see any of the pedestrian concerns about people, who are using the crosswalks and vehicles not obeying and stopping for them. But they are aware of the concerns, and I'm just wanted to report back to the council on that progress. Another more recent update, we have emailed the council, and I think I've put this out now to the community. We did receive an application for a lot split related to 800 Corte Madera Avenue. That is related to the SB 9 state law, SB 9, which allows applicants to split their lots and create new additional units through a ministerial process. So we just got this on Wednesday of last week. We are currently evaluating the application, and obviously we'll be updating the council as this moves forward. And have already obviously passed this along to our town attorneys to review and help us in processing that application. And one other thing just to note, we were alerted yesterday from Ann Richmond at TAM that they were going to put on the agenda next week an item related to just background studies and information related to the Alto Tunnel. Colleagues in Mill Valley requested that it be postponed because they have a conflict with that time during the agenda. And so I sent an email supporting that request as well. And so that's going to be postponed to a date, I think in January. I think it's important that our community, if something like that is on the agenda at any public body, that have the opportunity well in advance to attend and hear more about that. So just wanted to give that update to the council as well. And just a note on the last item, I will say that I learned, being one of the things that I learned as we invest in our equipment for whether it's the mower or we are going to be investing in some new, like we have tractors and whatnot that are really being over at the courtyard. You see them just sitting out exposed. They're really exposed to the elements. And so I'm really happy to see the need for basically a structure, some sort of storage facility, also closer to where they're actually being used, because right now they're being mobilized and having to drive through our streets to get to the facilities where they're needed. They're needed all over town, but at Town Park as well. And so just wanted to, Chris did a great job mentioning it, but we'll be talking about that in 2026 as we go ahead with that project as well. So with that, I'll end my report for now and hand it back over to Mayor Thomas. Thanks.
Any other reports, Fred?
Yeah, yesterday I attended a Marin Transit Board meeting. Just a couple of things there. Marin Transit was awarded $5.6 million Federal Transit Administration grant. They're going to use that money to buy 3 new long hybrid buses and also modernize the Rush Landing facility up in Novato. I've mentioned before the mascots efforts, which is Marin Sonoma, trying to look at transit from a regional standpoint. Yesterday we approved the schedule changes. There's a couple of changes that we backed off of in Southern Marin, and those changes will go into effect in April or so. And the last one is, mentioned this before also, that Marin Transit is building a new facility on Francisco Boulevard in San Rafael. The SECO report came out. There was only 4 findings that were less than significant, but all of them have mitigating factors. And I think yesterday was the last day to provide comment on that report. And just to put this project in perspective, the design phase will be in 26, construction will probably be in 27, and they're looking at having that operational sometime in the mid-30. So it's a long haul project, but it'll be well worth it once it gets completed. Thanks.
All right.
Only one thing I want to highlight, which is at the November 20th MCE Clean Energy Board meeting, I was very proud to see our board vote to establish a standing finance committee. You guys are probably aware that there have been a series of articles in the IJ looking at MCE's sort of governance and structure. And, I think this is a really important step that there's been a lot of resistance to for months and months at MCE. And I think this is a big step forward for us and a big step forward for strengthening the agency. So just wanted to share that exciting news.
Great. Okay. And I will have plenty at the next meeting, but I don't have anything this time. Jim.
Nothing really to report except for they've turned on the metering lights on the freeway, which still doesn't solve the commute lane problem, which Cam really can't do anything about since both TAN and Sonoma County told MTC and Caltrans that the hours they were suggesting didn't work for us. And so the Caltrans and MTC went ahead and did it anyway. So we are now in sync with the other 5 bridges in the Bay Area.
Next item is the discussion of the agenda for the December 16th meeting. Does anyone have any suggestions for additions or anything to remove from that? All right, then. Well, I'm pleased to say then we will adjourn this meeting. Good evening, everyone.